Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I'm okay, Charlie. How are you?
I'm good. I meant to say my long-suffering podcast associate, because I've been putting this episode off for a while, and I want to apologize to you, Jacob, and I want to apologize to our beautiful listener, our one listener that we have. I want to apologize to him or her.
First you delayed it a week, and then you delayed it another day.
Now I delayed it another 30 minutes.
I delayed it half an hour, and then you delayed it an additional 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I want to apologize to everyone involved. That was not my intent, but we move on. We move forward, right? Today, I have an episode titled "The Crimson Rider." Is the name of the episode?
Oh.
And it follows two main characters, right? Our first character, Henry Flynn. Henry spelled Henri, Flynn. A millionaire socialite who uncovers a mystical ruby.
Why did you spell that out for us?
I will explain why. You'll see why I spelled it out. Right?
Okay.
You'll see.
I think everyone knows how to spell Henri.
Henry? It's spelled Henry. But there's an
Henri,
I instead of a Y. Keep that in mind. A millionaire socialite who uncovered a mystical ruby that summons a flying six-legged horse during the Great War. He uses that along with dual enchanted World War I pistols to fight crime in Hyde City. And he exists in sort of like a fictional, hyper-realized version of the 1930s, right? So imagine Dick Tracy, the Stranger, really early versions of Batman, that sort of a character, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like Zorro.
Exactly, like a Zorro-style character. And then we have Henry Flynn, our second main character, spelled Henry. And he is a Hyde City police officer with a disgraceful past. A former FBI profiler who now works to find serial killers that crop up in the city like addicts outside of a methadone clinic. All right? And this guy,
So we got Henri and we got Henry.
Yeah, sure.
And they got similar...
They're both...
Well, I'm just saying that to make it easier for the
You're
audience
saying it to make me
understand who you're talking
angry,
about.
is what you're doing.
Well, you do not like Henri? Do you not like the French pronunciation of Henry?
No. I like Henri and Henry because I know Henry, the 30s socialite, would despise the French because that's what all people did in the 30s.
Yeah, except for the French people. That
Exactly. Well, no, the French are notoriously self-loathing. All right, and so Henry, the disgraced FBI profiler, he exists in like a more realistic version of a 1990s city, right? So imagine like Seven or Fight Club or like Memento. He kind of exists in like a universe that is much closer to our own, but is still hyper-realized, right? There are still like crazy killers and stuff like that he's got to catch, right?
Mm-hmm. So more like Batman in sort of like our time.
Yeah, exactly. More Batman Begins.
Like the Batman, the movie.
Yeah, more Batman Begins The Batman versus the other Henry Flynn, who is more like 1960s style Batman, right? Or like the 30s serial style Batman, right?
Okay.
And so...
I like how everything is in terms of Batman. That really helps me understand it.
You wanted to make it about Batman, and I'm happy to, because that's not going to be the last Batman-related thing, or not even similar, it's just similarity you see. So, our two main characters have their own stories that are going along, and each episode will be split pretty much evenly between their two perspectives, right?
Okay.
So, the 90s, like, harder Henry storyline will be about... We'll start with the nap time strangler has been targeting parents as soon as they put their kids down for a nap, and Henry must work with other members of the police department, including a young woman by the name of, where I have her name, Kita. They must work together to figure out who this killer is and how to stop them. And then we have Henry, the socialite, You know what? I will just call him Henri. Henri and Henry.
Ah.
Yeah, you've twisted my arm just because it makes it so much easier. It's so much easier when you can read it. But Henri is... His story is, the felonious falcon is at it again, having stolen the prized jewel of the LeBeau family during their patriarch's funeral. You know? That's his story.
Yeah.
So, a supervillain by the name of the felonious falcon has committed a crime and now he has to stop it, right? And one of the things that I did to help me differentiate these two characters is all of Henri's, stories are written in cursive, and all of Henry's stories are written in just regular print.
Oh.
So if you looked at the notebook, you would be like, oh, there is a big
That's why
difference.
it's Henri and Henry.
Yeah.
It's the perfect.
It makes sense. You're right.
Henri, very cursive name. You can't write Henri in manuscript. No. You have to write that in cursive.
Yeah. So, episode 1. After Henry awakes after a strange dream of galloping across the skies, he takes a shower and gets his last cigarette stolen out of his window. So this is how I want the opening scene of the show is our main character, Henry, waking up in a cold sweat, and he takes a shower, and we realize that he is on the first floor, and his window in his bathroom sticks immediately onto the street. And so our first, real good look at him is him sticking his head and, one arm out of the, curtain of his shower with a cigarette in his hand. And in his mouth, and he's just trying to get strangers on the street to light the cigarette for him. And he finally thinks he's got someone with a lighter, and they steal the cigarette out of his mouth and smoke it as they walk away. And he's just not having a good time, right? Believe it or not, one of my main characters is kind of a scumbag. I know. Surprise, surprise, I usually write saints.
He's always got no good scumbag guys.
Yeah. And so he gets out of the shower, he's annoyed that he's gotten his last cigarette stolen, and he hops into his cherry red Corvette and drives to work at the police station, right? Remember, the show is called The Crimson Rider. That's...
Gotta have a red car.
Yeah. He gets to work and is chewed out for being late, and then he gives a brief to the newer officers about the nighttime strangler. Officer Kita, one of the newest recruits, suggests that daycare employees as possible subjects, and Henry belittles her, but, and he dresses her down in front of everybody, and that's a stupid idea. But then, after everyone's dismissed, he demands that they ride together, because he's even though he took her down a peg, he's she's probably the smartest person, smartest new recruit, I want to have her in my car. Right?
Okay.
And so they ride around, and they get to the house of the latest murder. And they investigate the parents and the children, and they find that these kids have really no connections whatsoever. The houses are on different sides of the town, the kids don't go to the same school, the parents don't shop at the same grocery store, nothing. There's really no connection, right, between the families of this naptime strangler. And so they give up the search. Henry kind of just whatever, he gives up for the day, and he decides to go get a drink and something to eat at the local slop shop, right? And this is the one place in town where they actually genuinely seem to like Henry, and he gets his drinks for free, and that's his thing. And this is more, and once they get there, they start chatting, and we learn a bit more about Kita and a little bit more about Henry through this. And we learn that she was the top of her class and a self-made expert on criminal psychology. And Henry remembers his training in a hazy fog of nostalgia and regret as he's chatting to her about his time in the academy and all the adventures he had, and you kind of get the impression that most of what he's saying didn't happen, or if it did happen, it didn't happen like that.
I see. And so he's like, I had such a great time, and it's him getting beat the fuck up.
Yeah, he gets beaten up. And
I had tons of friends. He gets face shoved into a toilet bowl.
Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. And so he has a few drinks. He maybe has a shot of whiskey or whatever, and then he gets in the car behind the wheel, of course, and he drops Kita off at her house, right? He says, I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to keep up the search. He's basically decided she's gonna be my partner. Right? And she gets really no say in it. And then he goes home and he falls asleep while watching an old 1930s action serial on the TV, right?
Ah, the Gray Ghost.
Exactly. He's watching The Gray Ghost. And then Henry awakes and begins his day with a robust exercise routine and an anonymous debriefing from the police chief. So he's got the red phone that he picks up, and the police chief talks to him about the crimes that have occurred. The felonious Falcon is at it again, this time harassing a family in mourning. The Cur! Henri Flynn has an appointment with a psychiatrist where he tells them about his strange dreams that he's been having, right? Of poverty and crime and disgrace in the future. Seemingly, these dreams are taking place in a time that he does not recognize, with technology that he could never even imagine, like a cellular phone or cars that have radios built into them. The doctor, who we never see, ups his medication yet again. And then Henri decides to give the LeBeau family his best wishes. So he goes in and he chats with the family, and he sees the casket with this old man. You know, he was the patriarch, and Henri gives a bit of a solemn regard, like maybe he didn't have the best relationship with this man, but his family does not deserve his wrath, and that sort of thing. And after all of that, he dons the visage of the Crimson Rider. And as the Rider, he begins his search for the felonious Falcon. And after a citywide searching across the skies and on the grounds, going and beating people up in dingy bars and going through the scum of the city. And I really want this is going to be very silly, obviously, because it's a 1930s style serial, but he's got imagine he's got this gigantic red overcoat and these thick red circular glasses, a scarf on his face, and a large red fedora, right? He's really leaning into the red theme. He's got two dual
It seems very,
Mausers.
What is it, Batman Returns?
Yeah.
The one with Val Kilmer as Batman, and I think Tommy Lee Jones had the very crazy looking Two-Face.
So imagine, a mixture of Tommy Lee Jones and Batman. Is it Batman and Robin? I think that's Batman and Robin. Or Batman Forever.
I think Batman and Robin is it? No, that's Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Wait,
doesn't matter.
I think Batman and Robin is George Clooney. I think that one is Batman Forever.
Batman Forever. So imagine Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever mixed with The Shadow, right? Or Dick Tracy. Something like that. And he's going through and he's beating people up and he's getting all sorts of information, right? And after this citywide search, he finds the felonious Falcon cowering in the city aviary. He seems to have lost his mind, and as the Crimson Rider attempts to take him in, the Falcon flees the Rider and brings him on a merry chase across the city sky. So the felonious Falcon, given the name, he does have a falcon suit that lets him fly across the city. And again, the Crimson Rider has a enormous, bright red, six-legged horse that lets him fly across the city. So just keep that all in mind. That's how the first episode ends.
Are these mechanical flying machines, or this it doesn't really make sense, but
the felonious Falcon's suit is mechanical. He's kind of like the Vulture. But the rider himself, the horse, is 150%. It's magic. He got it in an Egyptian temple or something like that in the war.
Okay.
He was in the war and he found himself in this temple and all this stuff. Episode 2, the what is it? What is the Nap Time Strangler? Yeah, the Nap Time Strangler is still on the loose, and Kita and Henry are looking up every league, and they eventually figure out that all of these kids are in the same little league. They're not on the same team, but they're in the same general
Rec league
area. What's it called? Same league, I guess. They're in the same little
like they all the teams play each other.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And you want to guess what the name of that league is called?
I don't know.
That's right. It's the Falcons Little League.
Ah.
All right. So
I was about to say the name of my little league that I played in, but then I thought that's probably not it.
No, probably.
And how would he know that?
It would be weird if I did know that. Is it the Falcons Little League? Because that would be crazy.
No.
All right.
No, it's not.
The Falcons Little League, and it's discovered, through Kita's incredible detective work and understanding of criminal psychology. They figure out that the head coach is actually the Naptime Strangler. And so they're able to deduce that he is, when the people's nap times are and when the killer is going to be free to strike again. They figure out where he's going next, and they apprehend him just before he is able to do the deed and kill the parents. So Kita and Henry stop one more child from being orphaned, and they take this as a success, and as they're arresting him, they put him in the back of the police car, and they're driving him away. The Naptime Strangler's babbling in this nonsensical language, nothing that either of them has ever heard before in film and TVs, in real life. It's a language totally alien to either of them, and the only word that they can find really that they understand is city, and he's just saying city over and over again in between all of these bouts of just insane babble, right? And that's the end of Henry's section of episode 2. Henri is the felonious falcon, is leading the rider on a merry chase across the city, and it's like this big action sequence. And they finally are stopped at the city dam, where the felonious falcon speaks in fear about the city's dark future in an unknowable language before killing himself, flinging himself off of the dam, right? Henri is then he's got this look of horror on his face, and then we cut immediately to Henri in another therapy session, where he is prescribed even more medication as he talks more and more about these strange dreams that he's having. Right?
Yeah.
End of episode 2. Episode 3. The first episode is much long. I wrote much more for it because I was just like,
yeah,
we gotta go fast. We're going fast. Gotta go fast. Vroom, vroom, vroom. We talked about how we making episodes too long recently. Or me. I've been making episodes too long.
Yeah.
But there's only 5 episodes of the series, so calm down. So, episode 3, Henry and Kita discover the killer's notebook, the Naptime Strangler's notebook, and they find these mysterious glyphs that are scrawled all over this map of the city, right? And they're like, we don't understand this at all. This isn't any language that either of us recognize. And, we try and scan it into Google, and Google has no idea what the fuck it is. So, what are we gonna do? And Henry remembers that he has a contact in the university, the local university. We'll just call it, Hyde City College, or whatever. That is, who is, an expert in ancient languages, Like an archaeologist, or, what's the other word? What's it? Like a study of people? Forget. Anthropologist, right? Yes. So Henry has this anthropologist contact, and so he talks to him, and he gets him to figure out that the scrawled glyphs on this map are they're Sumerian, ancient Sumerian, but the translation technique that these glyphs are written in is at the very least decades old, decades out of use. Nobody has translated Sumerian or written Sumerian like this since, at the very least, the latest would be the 1930s, right? And so it is going to take our friend a few days to translate it. And so meanwhile, Kita begins investigating Henry because she hears all these things about him outside of working with him. Like she hears things from other cops, she hears things from people in his neighborhood, and she's beginning to think that there's maybe more to his story than he lets on. And his like files have been like redacted or classified, right? And so she begins to investigate him and finds that he was involved in a horrific school bus bombing, with him as being the only survivor, right? Because he was an FBI profiler, and he threw the rules to the wayside and decided that he could go save these people and stop this lunatic who's going to blow up a school bus. But for some reason, he failed, and he was the only person to survive, even though he was inside the bus with all the kids, right? None of the kids survived, just him, right? And so Kita is kind of taken aback by this and maybe thinks that there's more to him than meets the eye. Maybe he isn't just a wayward soul trying to do good. Maybe he is actually like a lunatic, a baby killer, a maniac and a fool, right? Mm-hmm. It's bad news bears for Kita, bad news bears for Henry. Meanwhile, the writer is investigating this language by talking to an anthropologist Henry knows from the war. The new translation of the Sumerian tells of an ancient evil that consumes civilizations when they gain too much power. He then prowls through the cities, he then investigates the city's founders and finds, founders' journals. So he goes into his vast, personal library and is able to find the journals of the founders of the city, of which his family is one of the original founders. And he finds that this name keeps coming up, this name that he can't translate. It's almost as if it's an untranslatable name, but it is attached to this prophecy of a civilization devouring beast, this being, right? He finds this name repeated over and over again within the text, but hidden behind layers and layers of various puzzles and riddles, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty spooky scary at this point. Any questions for the class?
Could Jim Carrey play Henry and Henry? A young Jim Carrey.
A young Jim Carrey.
I think he could nail Henri, and he could probably do Henry because he's a good actor.
He is a good actor, so yes, I'd say yes, he could.
Hell yeah. I'm just imagining, like, Ace Ventura Pet Detective as Henri, and then, like, straight-faced, grim detective Jim Carrey as Henry.
I like that. I could see that, yeah. Episode 4... Episode 4 begins with Henry and Kita finding a series of crimes, murders, assaults, batteries, all over the city. And then after they hear about this, they look at it, and it appears that each of one of these crimes is directly correlates to one of the glyphs that was drawn into the map of the city, right? And they begin to investigate. You remember the map that the Naptime Strangler had? Mm-hmm. All the murders and assaults take place at those same places in the city. And so they go and they investigate them, and they find that drawn in ultraviolet paint on the areas where the murders happen is the exact same glyphs as were in the killer's, in the killer's notebook. And so they do some more investigating, they take some fingerprints, and they go and they bring it to the criminal database at the police station, and they find nothing, right? At very least, these prints, they don't belong to anyone in the database, they don't belong to anyone in the database. But there is, a vast catalog of fingerprints downstairs in the paper databank, because that were never uploaded to the digital databank, because why would they? These people are all dead. I mean, come on, these fingerprints are from what, the 30s? That's ridiculous. And so Henry and Kita, they search through, they pour through all of these old fingerprints until they find a match for a Frederick LeBeau, a long dead socialite of the city. Died decades ago. Very, very strange. And then they are once again contacted by their anthropologist friend at the University of Hyde City, who has successfully translated the text. And he finds that the original translations written by anthropologists back in the day were actually incorrect. He was able to correctly translate it. It is not an ancient evil that consumes a city when the civilization has become too powerful. It's actually the other way around. It's the city will consume this civilization. The city is the ancient evil that is spoken about in the prophecy. And that's no good.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's bad news bears. And so then they're freaked out, obviously. And they go back to this slop shop that they went to in the first episode. And Kita finally, all of this horror and death and destruction and prophecy that she's been inundated with over the last few days, she is still very much of a mind that it's not real. Magic's not real, and this is all bullshit. But Henry is much more willing to believe it, and she finally confronts him. She says, "You were in that bus that exploded. You're a failure. You're a liar. Why should I trust you?" And then he explains the full story, the redacted parts of the story, in which he was protected in this bus explosion by some sort of a magical force, and he heard a language in his head while this force field protected him from the explosion, right? It was the same exact language that the Naptime Strangler was babbling about before he was finally taken to jail. And they're like, what the hell? So that's why Henry is so willing to believe that this is magic and prophecy, is because he's experienced this magic once before. And so they decide to pay the Naptime Strangler a visit in prison, but he has been murdered, slaughtered, torn apart, and his intestines and internal organs decorate the inside of his prison cell with all of the ancient glyphs that were written in his map all over the cell. And that's the end of Henry's section. The Crimson Rider tears the city apart trying to find the secret group that is mentioned in the translated text within the journals of the city founders. And he is eventually able to track this all down, all of this crazy shit, back to the LeBeau family. He goes to them as Henri. He decides to lose the costume. He goes to them as Henri, and he begins to talk to them, ask them questions, and you can all see them being a little suspicious, but he's, again, just a guy, so why would they care? Maybe he wants to join, that sort of a thing. And as he's, making introductions and maybe trying to get himself accepted into the secret organization, he's attacked, knocked out from the back, and he awakens. Dawn, and he's, been dressed back up as the Crimson Rider in full costume regalia, and he's trapped downstairs underneath the LeBeau Manor inside of this enormous underground sanctum for the worship of their dark god that the LeBeau family has, secretly been devoted to for centuries, with the dead patriarch of the LeBeau family, Frederick LeBeau, as the center of the worship, and he's alive again, and he's sacrificing people, and he's chanting his strange, horrific language that he's never heard of. Huh?
I said this is very Court of Owls.
It is Court of Owls. I was thinking of like sort of Court of Owls meets like Cthulhu style stuff,
I like it.
Because I didn't know where to end it. But now we're going to find out where I end it, because episode 5 is the final episode. And this episode is going to get a little weird. because the rest of it's been very normal.
Oh, this episode. Okay. The rest of it's been stark normal.
Yeah, very
bang average.
Yeah. But that's how episode.
For a second, I thought you were just reading the Breaking Bad pilot.
Yeah.
Then I realized this is a different show. When you said Henry.
Henry, not Hank. Episode 5 begins with Henry and Kita discovering LeBeau's diary, hidden deep within the underneath the police department, within their paper files. And within the diary, they're able to decode the secret text that is hidden, within the text, right? So it's, ciphers and stuff. And Kita and Henry are able to figure out that there's a secret entrance to this cave of worship underneath the abandoned LeBeau Manor. And so they decide to suit up. We do a cool, suit up sequence where they have guns and they're loading them and they're, getting ready. They put on their vests and that sort of thing. And they go to the manor. And they're able to, pry open this long, forgotten well and rappel down into the cave underneath of the LeBeau Manor. There they find this horrific ritual taking place with the, mangled corpses of dozens of people lining the walls as the ancient visage of LeBeau slits the throat of a civilian, right? And I wanted to kind of be a mirror shot to when the Crimson Rider awoke, right? It's almost the exact same thing with the same people, but instead of being this young family of fully living people and socialites in the 30, they're now basically walking corpses, with their skin all gaunt and sallow, and no, they haven't had sons, so they're also pale and barely living, right? Kept alive only by the magic that LeBeau is able to pull from the city, right? Henry tries to stop him, right? As he slits the throat of the civilian, Kita stays hidden, but Henry can't help himself and he jumps up, he tries to stop him, but is himself stopped by the hanging, barely living body of the Crimson Rider. That's right. The Crimson Rider didn't just disappear. He was held captive by these cultists for the last 60 years.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so he's hanging up. Imagine kind of a, not on a cross, but he's hanging up, being suspended by this horrible fleshy mass, but he's still in his full costume and he looks up and you can see the face. And I would imagine it's the same. Yeah, it's the same actor, but he's gaunt and he's very skinny and he looks as if his very life essence has been being sucked out of him for the past 60 years. And then the second half of the episode takes place from the Rider's perspective, right? But he sees the world through Henry's eyes, with both of their internal monologues overlapping and arguing as Henri and Henry try to coalesce their two perspectives into one, right? And as this is happening, they both fall to the ground. Henry falls to the ground and he's in agonizing pain as LeBeau explains that the two men have been touched by a horror unknown to them and unknown to mankind itself, making them the perfect vessels for the true, the true power of the city to come forth and destroy the civilization, take it back into the depths from which it was made, right? But as LeBeau is explaining this, Kita pops out from her hiding space and she begins blasting people down, and she implores Henry that he doesn't have to be this, this vessel for this horror. He has experienced terrible things in his life, but he's also done so much good, right? He's helped so many people. And even though the people in the city can't really see that because they call him a killer and a monster, they, without him, they would have been dead or, living in a fear a dozen times over. He's helped so many more people than he's hurt. And with that, and she's speaking to Henry, but she's also speaking to Henri. And through, her words, they're able to come together. And instead of their overlapping, monologues and their internal, thoughts fighting one another, they became the same. In one moment, they turn into the same person, and they decide that they need to help people, right? They need to save the world. They can't allow this madman to have his way with the city. And so we have like a coalescing of both of their physical forms, as, you know, we get the face of Henry, but he's in the Crimson Rider outfit, and he's got two of the normal guns and the regular, and the Crimson Horse shows up out of nowhere and begins helping them, as the magic of the ruby and the magic of the guns and the magic of these two men working together for a greater good is able to overpower LeBeau, able to stop his evil plans, his evil plots. But in doing so, they burn out the last of their collective energy. And as the two men in the same body lie dying on the ground, having destroyed LeBeau and destroyed this accursed temple to death and hatred, they look up at Kita's face, and they are satisfied with what they've done. They're satisfied with their sacrifice. It's the end of the story. That's the end of the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn.
What?
I'm a little confused. So what's the thing that makes them one person? I'm confused at how they're one guy.
Because the evil that takes over civilizations, right? And kills people.
Yeah.
It's meant to be, throughout the show, you're meant to think that it's this external creature, but when in reality it is the city of Hyde City itself. And these two men, Henry and Henry, are kind of like mirrors of one another for the time that they live in. And the reason that they are that way is because they experienced great horror in their lives, right? Henri, obviously in the Great War, and Henry in his, life as an FBI profiler. And so LeBeau is going to use these two mirrors to like basically look at one another. You know, when you get two mirrors and you point them at one another and they bounce back and forth and you see this never-ending cascade, right? But it's just kind of like evil energy that will allow the city to, fully consume the civilization. And like I said, there's serial killers all over this city, and it's because the city itself is evil, right? And so seeing it, they are mirrors, but they can't get along. They hate each other. Throughout this whole episode, their like internal monologues are just like battling, but they realize that they're much more similar than they are different. And that, realization that the mirrors are the same mirror is enough for them to like come together magically and turn into one guy, right?
Okay.
That's the sort of thing I was going for.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I think I understand.
And then
still a little confusing, but
yeah,
it's
a confusing show. I know it is. And then the final scene turns out that Henry wrote a really, really great recommendation letter for Kita to go and become an FBI profiler, which we will have learned that that's her like dream job, basically. That's what she wants to do. And this police department is a stepping stone in that. And so before he died, he was able to send a recommendation letter to some of his contacts. And so the final shot will be...
Oh, so you could have like a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to tell me.
Yeah, the final shot will be her, walking into her first day as an FBI profiler. And it'll be sort of a thing. Maybe she'll be sitting at a desk and you'll see the wall of like FBI profilers and police officers who died on the job who are part of this, department. And we'll just see Henry's picture.
Oh, you know what? You know what you could do? In the beginning of the show, you can have her apply for that job, and she gets rejected, and then she goes back in her first day, and she's like, so what made you change your mind about accepting my application? It's like, oh, well, your letter of rec came in, and, it was such a glowing review, we couldn't let you down. We couldn't, not take it. She's like, my letter of rec? She's like, oh, yeah, it was a little late, but it came in.
Yeah.
And then we zoom in on the picture.
Zoom in on the picture, and it's a nice little story. about people being friends.
Yep, that's what it's about. It's a nice
story about people being
children-friendly show about people being friends.
It's definitely not about crazy, weird, like, time loops and, people having the same soul and destiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Crimson Rider. That's my show.
The Crimson Rider. What a show.
What a show.
I'm glad that I, in the beginning, forced you to call one character Henri and the other Henry.
Me too.
Because it was funny.
It was funny and helpful.
Also, it would have been confusing.
Would have been so confusing. But that's okay. Because we're here. I said my show. Is it the best show I've ever written? No. But I think it's fun. I think it's good.
What show is the best show you've ever written, Charlie, since you've decided that this one isn't?
The Hate.
The Hate? Wow, that was a quick response. I think if you asked me the same question, I wouldn't be able to answer.
I love The Hate so much. I think it's fun. But I think that's also because I really like political satire. Also, probably Human Meat would be my two. What would be your two?
See, out of your shows, I like Human Meat more than The Hate.
That's fair.
Human Meat's a standalone show. The Hate, you probably had to watch the other show to understand what Human Meat is.
You're right. You know which one of your shows I really like? Journos.
I do. I was going to take a guess, and it was going to be a wildly wrong show.
Was it going to be the woman?
I listened back to Journos. Not much of a plot in Journos.
No, it's all about the world. But I like the world a lot. And I like that I'm a character, and you're a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we're not characters. What are you talking about?
No, not at all.
I think it's Edward and Fred.
Yeah, Edward and Fred.
Are the characters. I don't know. It's not you.
No.
It's Edward and Fred.
Yeah, good. You're right. Sorry, I mixed it up.
It's crazy. You have such a high opinion of yourself that you think you're those characters. Even if we were those characters, who would we be? I mean, we're not similar at all. I guess you're kind of similar to Fred.
And you're kind of you're not that far off from Edward, I'd say.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You do smoke all the time.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
I am very well known for smoking at all times.
Yeah. But yeah.
No sarcasm.
That was the Crimson Rider. What'd you think, Jake?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was going a different direction a couple of times. Mm-hmm. I was trying to figure out how they were connected. I thought parallel universe maybe. I thought maybe it was relatives.
Nope.
But two souls, one guy, or two guys, one soul.
Yeah, pretty much.
That should be the name of the show, actually. Two guys,
one soul. Two girls, one cup. Two guys, one soul.
Well, that was the part that you didn't have to get to, Charlie. That was okay. I'm gonna cut that
out. Yeah. Two guys, one soul. Timeline repeats itself over and over again. We live in a never-ending loop. Cthulhu.
Did they not break the loop at the end?
They did break the loop at the end.
Okay.
It's just good. We were happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was really struggling with how I was gonna, because I knew I liked the idea of a detective and he's having dreams of like a 40s style hero, right? But I really didn't know how I was gonna tie it in. I didn't know what the story was gonna lead to, what the main bad guy was gonna be. And then I was thinking one day, I was like, what if it was Cthulhu? And then it was Cthulhu. I made a Cthulhu.
Oh.
So,
well, I'm normally not a very big fan of Cthulhu. I feel like he's overdone.
Yeah. But we've never...
Doesn't really have too much character to him either, but, I like the way you did it.
Yeah, he's a city. Cthulhu is built by man. We are the architects of our own destruction. And all that jazz. But yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me, has always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and my long-suffering podcast associate, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. Remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to all to imagine and enjoy. Thank you, and have a good night.